Well, welcome to the C Files, folks. Thanks for joining me. And this will be a Christian reads the Quran. And I just finished another reading in this book, The Battle for Christmas by Stefan Nessenbaum. It's just a history of Christmas in the United States. Just goes through the history of it and how it developed, and all the traditions got started and all of that. It's a good book. And before that, I spent time in the Bible, doing devotion time in the Bible. Now, there's some criticism that has showed up in the comment section trying to say that the Bible has been corrupted and the Quran corrected the Bible. There is a mountain of scholarship from Christian scholars, from historians, and even archaeologists that stand against that sentiment. There's the Muslim scholars on one side who say the Bible is corrupted, and then there's a mountain of Christian scholars and historians and archaeologists that say no, the Bible shows a lot of accuracy and no corruption, really. Actually, no corruption. You look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, for example, that were dug up, and they date way back pre-Christ. They match up with the Masoretic text so well. And you're talking about, 1,000-year stretch of time, and yet you compare the two texts, and they are virtually identical. Over 1,000-year difference in, one written copied 1,000 years later after the other one. Masoretic versus Dead Sea Scrolls. No corruption at all. The New Covenant text, over 5,000 manuscripts testifying to the accuracy of that text across various continents, different languages. The majority text is just phenomenal. And well, if you look at textual criticism, manuscript evidence, if you look at the scholars that study that when it comes to the Bible, I think your arguments of corruption in the Bible will be, it's going to be very hard for you to make that argument. I've spent years and years studying it. And so maybe what I'll do based upon that, after I finish this book on Christmas, I might add a book on textual criticism, manuscript evidence in support of the Bible, um, and put that out. So if you believe that the Bible is corrupted, I would like to invite you to join me in that reading, and you could put your comments in that as well and make your arguments as I'm going through those scholars. All right. Now, I'm trying to remember where I left off the last time here in the Quran. I believe, okay, let me figure this out real quick. Okay. I uh I found where I want to pick up on. Uh quick question. And it's just a serious question that I think you guys need to address if you're Muslim. That many people are asking. And you're going to have to face these questions at some point, unless you just don't want to face them. You just want to deny that questions are even out there. But one of the questions is Muslims are attacking Christians in Nigeria, and these Christians are peaceful. They're not attacking Muslims, they're not going at Muslims. They're just simply being Christians, worshiping in their churches on Sunday and living their lives. They're not enemies as far as warfare goes against Muslims. And yet, these Muslims in Nigeria are just mass murder, slaughtering these Christians in their churches. There's been mass burials. It provoked a response from the current presidential administration in the United States. It got so severe. So my question is, are those Muslims obeying the Quran or are they disobeying the Quran? That's my question. Um, and just one example of things that are happening in the world today that Christians and non-Christians alike are saying, why is Islam doing that? Why are Muslims doing that? Declaring jihad on people who have not attacked them or done anything to them, but call them, but just declaring these jihads. Are those uh, in line with the Quran or not in line with the Quran? Are they being disobedient to Allah when they do that? That's the question. Are Muslims, the last question, are Muslims allowed to lie in order to promote the religion of Islam? Are Muslims allowed to lie to promote the religion of Islam? That's the third question. All right. Sorry for my throat. It's starting to mess up on me. I'm going to pick up on Surah 5, verse 54, true believers. O believers, whoever among you abandons their faith, so that guys would call that apostatizing, right? God will replace them with others who love him and are loved by him. They will be humble with the believers, but firm towards the disbelievers, struggling in the way of God, fearing no blame from anyone. This is the favor of God. He grants to it whoever he wills, and God is all bountiful, all knowing. So, it's pretty clear at this point in these readings that according to the Muslim faith, Allah or God, as it's said, as it's translated in this particular version, um, is a determinist in a sense, determines who will obey him, determines who will be allowed the opportunity to serve him and who doesn't. And it's God's choice, Allah's choice. And one person argued in the comment section that it has nothing to do with a person's works that they do. It's solely just Allah's choice as to who he grants grace and mercy and who he doesn't. Um, so that's in philosophy that would be called determinism. So is that true? Do you agree? If you're a Muslim, do you agree with that statement made by one of your fellow Muslims in the comment section? True guardianship. 55. Your only guardians are God, his messenger, and fellow believers who establish prayer and pay alms tax with humility. Whoever allies themselves with God, his messenger, and fellow believers, then it is certainly God's party that will prevail. Next part is unacceptable guardianship. O believers, no, this was verse 57, by the way, if you're trying to keep up with where the verses are. O believers, do not seek the guardianship of those given the scripture before you and the disbelievers who have made your faith a mockery and amusement. And be mindful of God if you are truly believers. When you call a prayer, they mock it in amusement. This is because they are a people without understanding. Um, and of course, let me go back to what is meant by guardian because I think that's important. Um, and according to this footnote 247, the original word in Aramaic, I meant to say, means guardian, caretaker, protector, provider, ally. So guardian has to do with a caretaker, a protector, a provider, an ally. So, for example, when we go down, so that using that definition, your only guardians are God. So God would be a caretaker, protector, provider, ally of them. That's really what it's saying. His messenger, so Muhammad would be in the same category, and fellow believers, so they have to take care of each other as protector, provider, caretaker, and ally. Um, and that if that helps to make sense for the non-Muslims that are when I'm trying to read this. um, and the Muslims already know this, but I'm just doing it for those who are not Muslims, and I'm reading this and they're going, "What's meant by guardian?" Um, that's what's meant by it according to the footnote here. So just wanted to clarify that. So here where it's saying, "O believers, do not seek the guardianship of those given the scripture before you and the disbelievers who have made your faith a mockery and amusement." In other words, it seems to be saying those who were in the faith and then left the faith. Don't seek them to be a protector, provider, ally, or caretaker, is what it's saying. And be mindful of God if you are truly believers. When you call a prayer, they mock it in amusement. This is because they are people without understanding. That brings up another question. In Arabic countries, or I shouldn't say Arabic, in Islamic countries where the main religion is Islam, they don't pray in the streets. They don't block streets and pray. They pray in the mosque. Um, so in England and the United States and places like that, why do they pray in the streets, blocking traffic, disrupting the normal flow of life? What's the purpose behind that? And why wouldn't they just go ahead and pray in the mosque like they do in the Islamic countries? That's a question that you guys can talk about in the comment section. All right. This is Surah 5, and it's verse 59. Make sure I don't skip over any of the footnotes, and I haven't yet, so good. Say, O prophet, O people of the book, which we now know are people who read the Bible, or people of the Bible, Jews and Christians. Do you resent us only because we believe in God and what has been revealed to us and what was revealed before, while most of you are rebellious? Well, as a person of the book, and that question being proposed, um, I have to say I don't resent Muslims. I don't resent Muslims. I don't know what was happening at the time this was written, and I can't get into the minds of the people at that time. I can only speak for myself. I don't resent Muslims. I don't resent Islam when it comes to the concept of resentment. Um, and I do not consider myself to be rebellious. If I were to deny um, the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, the deity of Christ, the teachings of Christ in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and the teachings of his apostles, then yes, I would consider myself rebellious. But that would be when I would think myself to be rebellious. Verse 60. Say, O prophet, shall I inform you of those who deserve a worse punishment from God than the rebellious? It is those who earn God's condemnation and displeasure, some being reduced to apes and pigs and worshippers of false gods. These are far worse in rank and farther astray from the right way. Now, there's a footnote here, 248, and it has to do with the apes and pigs comment. 248 says, literally or metaphorically. See footnote for 265. Okay, well, it's referring me to another footnote. So let me go to 265. There's two. And it did say 65, right? Yeah. Go to 65. Okay. And that would be footnote 24. And it reads like this: You are already aware of those of you who broke the Sabbath. We said to them, be disgraced apes. The footnote says, the chosen opinion among scholars is that those who broke the Sabbath were turned into real apes. Imam Mujahid, however, maintained that they just behaved like apes. Okay. So that's what the footnote had to say. All right, where am I? Here we are. We're going to be in verse 61, hypocrites among Jews. Got about 10 more minutes. When they come to you, believers, they say, we believe. But they are committed to disbelief when they enter and when they leave. And God knows what they hide. Excuse me. And the last context I saw was people of the book. So the day, I'm assuming, based upon grammatical context, is a reference to the people of the book. When they, the people of the book, come to you, believers, of course, believers being believers uh, in Islam, believers in Allah, they say, we believe. Um, no, I don't believe in Allah. I believe in the God of the Bible. So I don't know what was happening back then. Again, once again, I can't get into the heads of people back in the 6th, 7th century. Um, but for me, no, I don't believe in Allah. I believe in the God of the Bible. But they are committed, but they are committed to disbelief when they enter and when they leave. So that would be me, I guess. I'm committed to disbelief in what Muhammad put out and what uh, this God Allah, according to Muhammad, according to Muhammad, and then the traditions passed down from him by word of mouth over about 150 years, and then finally written down as the Quran. Yeah, I mean, that'd be me. Let me move on. So I guess I would be in the category of a hypocrite, according to this. Trying to find where I was. And it says, and God knows what they hide. Okay. So apparently that they would think that somebody like me would be hiding something. You see many of them racing towards sin, transgression, and consumption of forbidden gain. Evil indeed are their actions. Don't know what was going on back then, but that doesn't describe me. Why do their rabbis and scholars not forbid them from saying what is sinful and consuming what is unlawful? Evil indeed is their action. Now, rabbis would be Jewish and scholars. So there may be Jewish rabbis and Jewish scholars is what is being referred to here. So I can't speak to that because I'm not Jewish. But this is an accusation that has been hurled against Jews for centuries. This accusation that they are money grubbers. So very interesting. God is ever generous. 64. Some among the Jews said, God is tight fisted. May their fist be tied and they be condemned for what they said. Rather, he is open handed, giving freely as he pleases. That which has been revealed to you, O prophet, from your Lord will only cause many of them to increase in wickedness and disbelief. We have stirred among them hostility and hatred until the day of judgment. Whenever they kindle the fire of war, God puts it out. And they strive to spread corruption in the land, and God does not like corruptors. So it would seem that this is all accusations against the Jews of that particular time. There's a footnote, 249, and that was connected to the statement, some among the Jews said God is tight-fisted. And the footnote says, God's hand is tied up with greed. It says literal meaning. God's hand is tied up with greed. And then 250, which was attached to the next sentence, made their fists be tied and they be condemned for what they said. Rather, he is open-handed. That footnote says, we believe that God has hands, but not like ours. See the introduction for details. Okay. In Christianity, we would call that an amorphism. God talks about hands and the right hand of the Lord and all that. That being an amorphism, it's using human qualities or the human body, if you will, things that humans would understand. Like we understand the right hand, we understand hands, to describe something about God, something that he is doing. Not that God literally has hands, but that this description using hands as an amorphism to describe something that God is doing helps us to understand it. That would be an explanation in Christianity when it comes to references of God having body parts and things like that. God is a spirit, and it says in the Bible we must worship him in spirit and in truth. All right, I might be able to get through this page. Worst of both worlds. And there's no more footnotes on this page. Had the people of the book only been faithful and mindful of God, we would have certainly absolved them of their sins and admitted them into the gardens of bliss. And had they observed the Torah, the gospel, and I'm curious as to what I've yet to see an explanation in the Quran as to what the gospel is, or what Islam would call the gospel. I've seen so far it's talked about what the gospel does, but haven't seen a definition of the gospel in the Quran yet. I gave one out of the Bible. There are a couple places in the Bible where the gospel is actually defined. The best one really is 1 Corinthians 15, where it says that the gospel is the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. But I haven't seen anything like that in the Quran yet. So, and had they observed the Torah, the gospel, and what has been revealed to them from their Lord, they would have been overwhelmed with provisions from above and below. Some among them are upright, yet many do nothing but evil. All right. Uh, almost done here. A messenger's duty is to convey. O messenger, convey everything revealed to you from your Lord. If you do not, then you have not delivered his messenger. God will certainly protect you from the people. Indeed, God does not guide the people who disbelieve. Uh, and then the final part is adherence to scriptures, verse 68. Say, O people, I'm sorry, I misread that. Say, O prophet, O people of the book, you have nothing to stand on unless you observe the Torah, the gospel, and what has been revealed to you from your Lord. And your Lord's revelation to you, O prophet, will only cause many of them to increase in wickedness and disbelief. So do not grieve for the people who disbelieve. I think it's kind of saying when it says, and your Lord's revelation to you, O prophet, will only cause many of them to increase in wickedness and disbelief, is that the message of Muhammad in the Quran would drive some people away from Islam. Um, so it's several times has mentioned observing the Torah, and the gospel. Of course, the Torah being the first five books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers, and written by Moses. And the gospel, um, the only definition I've seen of the gospel in any religious text up to this point has been 1 Corinthians 15 and in the book of Romans, where it says that the gospel is the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. And the good news is that Christ bore our sins on the cross and rose triumphant over sin and death on the third day by resurrection. That's the only definition of gospel I've ever run across. And so I would say that I am observing the Torah and I am observing the gospel. But the Quran would differ from me from that and say that I am disobeying the Torah and the gospel. And of course, it would say that the Jews are also disobeying the Torah and the gospel. And only those who are of Islam, obedient to Allah through his messenger Muhammad, would be the ones obeying the Torah and the gospel. And so there's major differences between Christianity and Islam. And there's major differences also between Christianity and Judaism, although Judaism is the root of Christianity. Uh, the argument of the Christians is that the Jews failed to recognize the Messiah when he came and rejected him. And so at that point, they became enemies of Christ. and enemies of God, whom they claim to worship. Um, but the Quran comes along and says, well, yeah, but the Christians are also wrong in saying that Jesus Christ is Son of God and has, God deity, if you will, that he had God nature. In Christianity, the doctrine is that Jesus Christ had a human nature and he had a divine nature of deity. And so, not a deity like the Greek gods, for example, like these superhuman type figures like Zeus or Jupiter and any of that, but a deity in the sense of being the one true God. Um, and uh, in fellowship with the Father and the Holy Spirit as the one true God. Attributes unique only to them. And I was just reading in First Corinthians where the church is made up of many, but they are one. And I read recently in Genesis how Adam and Eve were two persons, two individuals, but in matrimony they are made one flesh. So two become one. In the church, many become one, one being the bride of Christ. In the Godhead or the Trinity, three persons are made one, one, one true God, Yahweh, Jehovah. I am that I am, as he said to Moses, the self-existent God. Uh, that's Christian theology. That is not Islamic theology. Islamic theology is that Jesus Christ is a prophet, but he does not have a divine nature. He has a human nature, but not a divine nature. He is not the Son of God because God cannot have a son. That is the argument from Islam or the argument from the Quran. Obviously, as a Christian, I do not hold to that belief. Um, but I hope this has been educational, at least, and will stir some interesting and hopefully respectful debate in the comment section. And I ask that. Um, there's a lot of vitriol on social media now where people are just being very unrespectful toward each other, very undignified toward each other, very rude, obnoxious, condescending, looking down their nose at others, thinking they're superior to someone else, full of mockery and just nasty. Uh, I want to say and cussing is not the way I wanted to say it, but a lot of cussing at other people, a lot of foul language. I would ask that we could avoid that in the comment sections of my videos. Um, I would ask that if you disagree with me, please give an argument, but give it. I ask that you give it in a respectful and dignified manner, not out of just spewing anger, if you will. I appreciate that. And thank you for joining me here on the C Files. Thank you for watching these videos. This is the most popular series I've been doing. Um, and, I don't want it to be a waste of time. I want it to be a benefit to people and educational for them. And I'm not forcing anything on anyone in these videos. I'm not forcing my belief onto anyone. I'm just explaining what my belief is. And you guys can take that and use it as you will. I pray that I pray that we would seek the truth and that we would not reject it when it's revealed to us. May God reveal himself to us in his true form, and may we come to know him. May we be reconciled back to him as we have been alienated from him because of our sin. May we be reconciled back to him and in Christian belief through the work of Christ on the cross. Thank you for watching. God bless. I'll see you next time here on the C Files. And please don't forget to like and subscribe because that helps the channel.